All right, we're talking with Dave Richards here at the Michigan Golf Show in beautiful Novi, Michigan. Now, Dave has been involved in the early days of the golf Mecca at Gaylord, which celebrates its 25th anniversary this year. And actually, it even kind of had a little start before that. And the big thing was to get people in here and to get writers in here to talk about how great it was. And how did you do it?
Well, I had a very good teacher back then, as I had no golf background, and my first interview was with Jack Berry himself, and he basically mentored me on how to handle writers. And when the Gaylord Golf Mecca started in 1987, we had a little head start. We had started a golf council which encapsulated the northeast part or northwest part of northern Michigan. But Gaylord was the center. Pure golf. It didn't have the lake or all the amenities and some of the other places, but it had really solid golf. And the big spark was when Harry Melling bought Sylvan Resort at the time and turned it into Treetops. And he brought the dynamic young golf instructor Rick Smith, who was really the magnet that drew the people into the area. I was the young PR guy bringing people to northern Michigan, very naive at the time, didn't have a golf background. I literally would open up Golf Digest and find the architect writer, Ron Witten, call him up and say, come on up to northern Michigan. And the funny part is he did. And then I was calling Tom Doak, who at the time was the architect critic for Golf Magazine. And that was a lot harder sell, because Tom was, as we found out later on, very critical of a lot of golf courses. And he said, well, okay, after 2 years, he finally decided to come up because he needed to see Crystal Downs again, which at the time I had no idea. Now it's one of my favorite courses in the world. But Tom Doak came up for Golf Magazine, and Gaylord was, had a lot of golf courses. Mike Husby was very involved in a lot of the development, Dick Weber. But when Rick Smith came up and Harry Melling started building this big Robert Trent Jones golf course, Rick was a young, dynamic fireball. And every writer that came to northern Michigan, I made sure they got through to see Rick. And Rick took care of everybody. He didn't care where they were from. And he spent time with them. He took them. He played golf. And anything he could do to keep the writers happy. And unfortunately, he had some young, soon-to-be tour players, Lee Jansen, Billy Andre, the Rocco Mediate. And they'd come up and practice with Rick. But Rick would really take care of the writers. And the time I found out how good Rick was as a teacher, because I didn't have a golf background, we had 10 writers from America versus 10 writers from Europe, and it was a contest, a Ryder Cup format. And we had the A-list writers from Europe, and these guys have been covering golf for 40 and 50 years. And one night over a beverage or two, one of the writers was holding court, and he was explaining Bobby Locke's swing. And a young Rick Smith, after he was done, corrected him. And he says, well, no, actually, Bobby Locke did this, and then he did this. And the writer, who was in his 70s, slammed his fist on the table and said, by God, you're right. That's it. That's the missing part. And for the next 4 hours, Rick sat there, this young guy, with these 50-year-old writers from Europe, and they broke down every swing of every golfer you could imagine. And Rick had, the eye, and he could break down all the swings of all these old-time golfers that I hadn't even heard of. And that really clicked in, that here's the most, important writers in the world, and Rick Smith is going toe-to-toe with them, and they're believing him. So that was the magnet, and that's when I really knew how good Rick was, and we kind of went on from there.
Well, and Rick Smith's going to be taken into the Michigan Golf Hall of Fame this year.
Yes, I'm going to have a little, I'm probably going to have a few anecdotes. Whoever does the writing, which I kind of have an idea. We just spent so much time at Treetops because, Rick would get them there, get people there, and just, one after another. And back when he had time, he'd take them, he'd just spend the time with them and take them to dinner and tell stories, and he was learning and soaking up information. And when Harry built the Fazio course, Rick was out there learning from Fazio about architecture, and you could see that was, the next thing that was in his mind. But I think that was the center part. But Gaylord had so many good golf courses that were very reasonably priced, and it's right off I-75, so you've got you're off the freeway and playing golf quickly. And they just had a really good concentration of golf right in that area at a very reasonable price, and a great variety of lodging too.
And they still do.
And they still do. And it's growing. And obviously Treetops grew, and then the Loon came on as Mike Husby went on to designing, and Dick Weber was a great guy. Good story about Dick Weber when he was at Otsego Club. We had Brian McCallan, the longtime travel writer for Golf Magazine in town, and Brian was he wasn't a golf snob. He liked atmosphere and red wine, and we really wanted to get him to Garland, but he just wouldn't. He said, "I'm not driving all the way out there." So after a round at Treetops in the morning, Dick Weber being the team player he was, I said, "Okay, we're going to go to lunch." So I drove Brian straight to the little Gaylord airport, and by now he's kind of, what's going on? When we got there, Dick Weber had a small plane ready to go, gassed up, and we flew Brian to Garland to their private landing strip, and he got there and it was a big joke, but when he got there and saw the Garland's property and the structure and the quality of everything, it really, I think he kind of trusted me after that, and Garland was just stunning, especially flying in that small plane, kind of low. We actually had that day we got a call that there were some F-16s in the area, so we had to take a little detour because of the Grayling base. But Dick was a great team player and really helped with he'd do anything for anybody in the Gaylord area.
And Gaylord and the Golf Mecca was the starting place out there at Treetops of a couple of sensational programs, Par 3 Shootout and the Big Break, which is on Golf Channel at all hours other than when Faraday isn't on. And so how did that go? How did they go over nationally?
Oh, the Par 3 Shootout really, that was a big deal. And now all of a sudden you've got 4 tour players of major stature, from Lee Trevino over the years to Phil Mickelson and Lee Jansen playing, at Treetops on national television with Rick there doing the hands-on commentating. And of course it's a spectacular course. The holes drop 150 feet, so everybody loves playing it because, what is the tourist like more than watching his ball fly, downhill, off a cliff, even though the tour players hate it because they can't gauge their clubs to hit it exactly how many yards. But that was an event that really brought attention to the area, and even to this day, the effect the Par 3 has on it, it's the only golf course at Treetops that never gets discounted. And Barry Owens, who's running the course now for the group, for Rick, the general manager, said that he thinks the price is 3 times what it would be for a normal Par 3 because they have photos of all the guys there and all the tour players that have played there, and it was a solid ESPN. That was another big notch in the belt of Northern Michigan and the Gaylord Golf Mecca.
And then Rick's idea was the Big Break.
Yeah, Rick had all the ideas, and Harry usually had the money, and the state would help out, and the Big Break has become this the survivor of golf or whatever, and that was hosted there, and again another. I think it really gave the idea of quality, and people saw these shots of Northern Michigan, and nothing against the Durrells of the world, but if you go down there, you see 5 golf courses jammed into 600 acres with houses everywhere and nets up. And then you get up to Northern Michigan and you see these resorts with 3,000, 5,000 acres and sprawling golf courses and wrapped around lakes, and Northern Michigan has the perfect. It's basically sand dunes covered up by trees with lakes and streams. So while it's not links golf on the ocean, the sandy structure makes it easy. Fazio was just thrilled to be able to work at Treetops because he was a month behind and he caught up in 2 days because of the sandy soil and the perfect land formations that we have up in the Gaylord area. Yeah,
that was the same thing with Reese Jones when he did Black Lake. They love Northern Michigan.
And I think to this day, Reese will, the architects never talk about their other favorite courses, but Black Lake, the quality of the land, and Reese really, you know, put a lot of personal attention into that golf course, and you know, he's the U.S. Open doctor, but anytime I talk to him, and anywhere in the country, he always brings up Black Lake, because that's just a great piece of property, and he got to do some things. He didn't have to push around dirt everywhere. It was just finding the holes, and it was a very high quality, and it's in perfect condition to this day.
Okay, thank you, Dave.